Now Mike Messina joining us to talk about the Islanders, who are up 4-1 against the Boston Bruins in Game 6 of their series, and they lead 3-2, and they're in a good position, I would say, to clinch this and move on to the next round. And Mike, we haven't had the pleasure. We've been doing the show for the last hour. We haven't had the pleasure to tune into this game. So really, what have you seen tonight? What have the Islanders done to really get this far ahead of the Bruins?
Guys, thanks for having me on 101 Nightly. It's a pleasure to be here. I haven't seen you guys or
Of
talked
course.
to you guys in a while, so I'm happy to be here. Semyon Varlamov, the Islanders goaltender, has been lights out tonight. 20 saves so far on 21 shots. He has really been the backbone of this team since the playoffs have started, and that doesn't stop tonight. The Islanders have been doing a little back and forth goaltending situation. One game playing Ilya Sorokin, next game playing Varlamov, and it was kind of confusing because neither could really get in a groove on what they wanted to do for the game, and it just really wasn't working out for them. But Islanders head coach Barry Trotz has stuck with Varlamov now for, I believe, 3 games in a row, and it has seriously worked out for them. Tonight, Brock Nelson comes off, has 2 goals. One was a goal where he charged the net, pretty much got the puck out of Tuukka Rask's glove himself, scored it right there. So Brock Nelson and Semyon Varlamov have kind of been the stones for the Islanders going into tonight.
I want to ask you about Game 5 because I feel like that was really the turning point. The Bruins, they outplayed them, right? They outshot them 44-19. And when you lose a game at home doing that, it's a real killer. And obviously there was some power play stuff with the refs. I'll go into Bruce Cassidy in a second. But do you think that was really the turning point in the series? Assuming the Islanders close it out here, able to steal that game in Boston, what did that do for the momentum going into this one?
Oh, it was everything. They had no purpose to even win that game, like you said, Ryan, with the shots compared to what the Islanders had. They had no purpose to win, and then being able to steal that game in Boston to bring it back to the Coliseum. I mean, if they don't win tonight, well, if they weren't in a 4-1 situation right now to win tonight and it went back to the Garden, this series would have been over, in my opinion. I don't think the Bruins are coming into Long Island, taking a game, then going back to the Garden and letting the Islanders take a Game 7 from there. So Game 5 was pretty much the turning point of this series. And like a lot of fans have been saying, that's exactly what they've wanted to see. Islanders needed to come and take that game. They did. They took another Game 2. So taking those 2 games at TD Garden has been huge for them and kind of brought them to this point where they can close it out in 6, which no one really expected them to do.
Well, yeah, building off of that, the Islanders, they had a year last year where they went to the Eastern Conference Finals and found their way back into the playoffs this year. But there were some question marks coming in. But I got to ask you, with the Islanders in a position to clinch, did you really expect this type of playoff success, especially, going up against opponents like the Penguins and the Bruins?
Yes, I did expect this kind of success, but I personally didn't think they would make it past this series and past the Boston Bruins. The Bruins are a much better team than them, in my opinion. They have skaters that can skate faster, shoot better, and just do more on the ice as a whole. And Tuukka Rask, in my opinion, is a better goaltender than Semyon Varlamov. So all in all, the Boston Bruins should be winning the series and should win the series completely, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen right now with the 4-1 lead for the Islanders. But really what helped them out along this run was their 2 trade deadline acquisitions, Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac. I mean, they really didn't give up much for either one of them. They gave up a first round, a 4th, and a conditional, and 2 prospects that you never really know what prospects are going to give you until they come up and actually play in the big league. So to be able to get these 2 guys who both have a goal tonight, by the way, Palmieri and Zajac both scored tonight, which has been huge. They've been doing that since they got here, since the trade deadline. And those 2 have really been a huge piece in this playoff run. And as much as people count the Islanders out year after year, they show up game after game after game and prove everyone wrong and prove that they belong to be here and they deserve to be in this spotlight and deserve to have a Game 6 at Nassau Coliseum tonight and beating a team like the Boston Bruins who could have overmatched them in every asset of the game.
Yeah, I think that speaks to Barry Trotz. They hit hard, they score, and they need to. They're well coached. And I want to talk about, the coaching here because Bruce Cassidy had a comment the other day. I'm sure, you talked about it on your podcast. Where the New York Saints comment, he got fined $25,000. I know there's that argument where, people look at how these teams played this season. Islanders were bottom 3 in penalties all year. Bruins were top 5 in penalties. So you could look at it that way as well, obviously, the Islanders aren't getting penalized. That's what they've been doing. But what do you think about the fine? Do you think that the comment was worthy of that? I know that there was some controversy there and just the whole aspect.
I think Bruce Cassidy's comments are fine. There was no disrespect intended towards the referees. He said that he knows them personally and that it's a great crew out there. They just need to work on things. And I know personally when people tell me I need to work on things, I'm like, all right, let me get better and let me learn how to do something better than how I'm performing. And I don't think the fine makes any sense to fine a head coach $25,000 for just voicing his opinion, because essentially one of the calls kind of lost them the game there with that slashing call. So, I mean, is it a huge deal, $25,000? No, but I see no reason for him to even get that fine. I mean, I feel like he had a little chip on his shoulder because Barry Trotz in his press conference mentioned that the refs need to keep an eye out on Patrice Bergeron at the faceoff circle because he cheats a little bit, and then he got taken out of the faceoff circle 4 straight in the first period in Game 5. So I feel like he had a little chip on his shoulder going into that as well. But the comments themselves, they're harmless. He's speaking the truth. They need work. And I feel like the fine is just unprecedented and not needed, but that's sort of the road the NHL goes down. They fine a lot of coaches and players for comments they make about officials and referees. And if that's the route they want to take, so be it. But it has to be consistent throughout the league, and it really hasn't been.
Mike, I'll ask you one more question before we let you go. I mean, it's been a pretty controversial subject. I mean, a lot of people have been vocal about, the officiating in this series, especially in the last couple of games with, Game 5 and Game 4. And I got to ask you, do you kind of fall around the same way? I mean, do you think the officiating has really played that much of a role in this series as people are saying?
Yes and no. In Game 5 specifically, absolutely. That is really the reason why the outcome was the way it was. I mean, the shots compared, the Bruins shots 40-something compared to the Islanders 19. It really should not even be a close game. And the refs gave the Bruins a slashing penalty, and the Islanders scored right on that power play, and that was pretty much the end of the game right there. The Bruins really never looked, the Islanders never looked back. So, I mean, yes, but all in all, I mean, they're humans and they make mistakes. It's a fast-paced moving game. We all know that. And for them to make mistakes is okay, but for them to make consistent mistakes for one team and not for the other, give certain teams calls and not the others, and make up calls and stuff like that, there's really no excuse for it. And I mean, I feel like we're at a point in life where referees, umpires, and people like that shouldn't be in charge of really where the game goes and the outcome of the game. And I definitely think moving forward, there needs to be some rules put in place that can make that not happen. I personally don't know what they could be, but the referee situation needs to get better in all ways, and not just hockey, but I think in all sports. And I don't see it really getting better anytime soon unless there's drastic changes.
Yeah. Islanders have the lead in the third period. A win will help them advance into the next round and win this series. Mike, thank you so much for coming on with us. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, man. It was great to be here. I haven't seen you guys in a while. I can't wait to get back to campus and finally be able to do this in person, hopefully.